uncle didn't give us 6 months. I heard him. I was at a cable convention, when the first one I ever went to, and I heard 2 people say, they'll never make it. And one man said, 6 months. Ha ha.
By the early 1980s, the post-Vatican II confusion was at full tilt. Traditions were up for grabs, devotions were being cast aside, talk of women's ordination and inclusive language was all the rage. Mother Angelica would have none of it. Despite her unorthodox approach to business, no budgets, no long-term plans, just a radical dependence on divine providence that God would provide, Angelica was quite orthodox when it came to her faith. By the early 1990s, she broadcast many endangered devotions, the Rosary, chaplets, and the Mass, all performed with an attention to reverence that was not lost on the growing viewership. We are joined by Father George Rutler, a longtime friend of Mother Angelica's and, of course, a staple here on EWTN. Father, thank you for joining us. What do you think is Mother's legacy vis-a-vis the example, the vision that she put forth to the general public about how Catholicism should look and sound and feel?
Well, how could we really talk about a legacy without just looking around us? You know, the famous architect, Sir Christopher Wren, was buried in St. Paul's Cathedral in London, and in the Latin inscription basically says, if you want a monument, look around you. So if you want to see Mother's legacy, just look around you. I can attest that amongst her great legacies have been, number one, converts to the faith, number two, reverts, that's the new expression, people who have recovered their faith, and consecrated vocations. I'm astonished at how many young men, young priests, tell me that they have found their priestly calling through EWTN, women and men in the consecrated religious life. So this is incalculably important in the life of the Church.
Father, what do you think she represented as a woman, perhaps the most influential woman in the Church in the United States, at a time when the world was insisting that women had no power in the Church and that perhaps ordination of women was the answer?
Well, she proved that in the Church, the only power that matters is grace, the action of the Holy Spirit. The period of right after the Council, Second Vatican Council, was a very neurotic time in many ways, and people were looking for different identities. And they they confused grace with political power. She had the greatest power of all. She was a mother. There is no more important figure in the world than a mother. Every one of us has had a biological mother. She was a spiritual mother in the same sense that priests are spiritual fathers. And she reminded us of that. I was thinking of that too when I was reading some of the announcements of her death. One announcement said, "We regret to inform you of the passing of Mother Angelica." Well, first of all, no regret. I mean, 92 years old, all she accomplished, she was faithful to our Lord. She suffered so much physically in so many ways. She's been relieved of that now. Pope Francis, I understand, when he heard about her death, said that he thought that she went right to heaven. Yeah. That's pretty important. And so there's no regret. And also, I objected to that term, passing. You see how easily we get infected by the language of the world. There are certain Gnostic sects, like the Christian Scientists, who say that people passed away. Well, we can understand that. A death of a loved one is traumatic.
Death,
yeah, but we don't pass away. In the liturgy, we don't say Christ has passed. We say Christ has died. And Mother would have been the first one to say, yes, we really die, but we die in the hope of the resurrection, as St. Paul says, the first letter to the Thessalonians. We would not have you be as those without hope.
Thank you, Father George Rutler. Mother Angelica was at heart a traditionalist, and factions in the Catholic Church were moving in their own direction, often battling Pope John Paul II and taking issue with his teaching. In 1993, things came to a head for Mother Angelica. She excitedly partnered with the U.S. Bishops' Conference to broadcast World Youth Day from Denver. But when a woman, a mime, assumed the role of Jesus in the Stations of the Cross, Mother had had enough. This moment would change her life and the life of her network forever.
It's blasphemous that you dare try to portray Jesus as a woman. You know, as Catholics, we've been terribly quiet all these years. After Vatican Council, those beautiful documents inspired by the Holy Spirit, they're so beautiful when you read those documents, like reading Scripture. But they were misrepresented and misportrayed and misinterpreted all these years, and every excuse, like this mime, had been blamed on the Vatican documents. I'm tired of being pushed in corners. I'm tired of your inclusive language that refuses to admit the Son of God is a man. I'm tired of your tricks. I'm tired of your deceit. I'm tired of you constantly just making a crack. And then the first thing you know, there's a hole, and all of us fall into it. No. This was deliberate. You made a statement that was not accidental. And this is just as much a lie as the lies we got last night. I am so tired of you liberal church in America. You see this collar? We had this little modern collar so that we would really appeal to this modern world, this pagan society. Am I bitter? No. But I'm being realistic. We're going to change it. We're going to look very Roman, because I'm making a statement. You've hidden your agenda with a mime. My agenda is not hidden, but I have yet to hear anyone contradict you or cross you or say anything to distress you. Well, I'm saying it. I'm saying it. I say it as an individual who has a right before God to be Catholic, and I resent your pushing your ways and your anti-Catholic, ungodly ways upon the masses of this country. Live your life. Live your falsehood. Live your lies. Leave us alone. Do what you want to do. You have that privilege from God Himself. But don't pour your poison, your venom, on all the church.
Coming out of World Youth Day, Mother Angelica would revert to the traditional habit of her youth and double down on her brand of vibrant orthodoxy. The activist spirit reemerged in Angelica. She would lobby against the film The Last Temptation of Christ, seeing it as blasphemous. She fought against inclusive language in the liturgy and agitated on behalf of the unborn. Joining us to discuss the fighting spirit of the activist Mother Angelica is Bill Donahue, the president of the Catholic League. Bill, thanks for being with us. Your thoughts on Mother Angelica, the activist. What did she represent to you? You were just starting around the same time.
Well, exactly. That was in 1993 when I took over in the Catholic League. And at that time, I'm looking for some role models. I had two. I had Cardinal John O'Connor at the Bishop of New York, and I was up there in 1011, which is the headquarters of the Archdiocese. He was a great inspiration, a model for me, but she was the other one. Both of them stood for not only for life, but they were vigorous in the defense of the faith. In the case of Mother Angelica, I was so much appreciative of her great sense of humor, as well as her courage. I mean, she struggled physically, she struggled emotionally, but her perseverance, and she understood in this particular case, having the woman as the stand-in for Jesus. Now, there are even people today who say, well, what's so wrong with that? They ought to go back and dial it back to what she said in 1993. She said, well, if they chose a woman to represent Martin Luther King, how well would that sit with the African-American community? All right? She understood what was going on here. People playing fast and loose with our theology. And she had the guts to stand up to an awful lot of people on that subject. Last Temptation of Christ as well. She knew that the pop culture does form people's minds, their sentiments, their ideas, and if they get away with that with impunity, we're only going to get more of it.
Would you like your children to be depicted?
Just a minute, Mother.
You have a daughter?
You have
a daughter?
Just a minute. Let me tell you something.
You have a daughter?
My wife and I were very stern about what films and books our children read. But I did not, I must tell you in all honesty, I did not allow anyone in the church or in the school to tell my wife and me how to raise our children.
Would you like your daughter depicted on the movie as a prostitute?
If
Would
she
you
was an
permit?
actress,
I didn't say that. I mean her real person as your daughter. Would you like her depicted as a prostitute?
Well, I could probably sue, I guess, I suppose.
Then you would say it was wrong.
But I would never say you can't do that, because I think that's prior censorship.
As a father, you would have to say, I will not have my daughter depicted as a prostitute, because I know my daughter and she's a good woman. Tell me that.
She was always tough, but she was never mean. Yeah. She was a great holy woman. She towers over all of us Catholics here today, and I think her legacy is secure.
How long-reaching do you think her influence, or do you consider her influence, Bill, and that legacy?
Oh, I think it's going to go on for decades. I mean, for one thing, Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen was the first one to use any religion, any cleric, to use the television medium to get forth his message. But she went beyond that. She built a media empire which is worldwide. To that extent, it's impossible for people going forward to talk about EWTN without talking about Mother Angelica. She's the origin, she's the root. And I hope that everybody who's watching will insist that all the programming keep in mind that she's the one who set the parameters. She wasn't sufficiently she wasn't just, sufficient to say, listen, when we are being attacked by those in the media, the entertainment world, the artistic world, in government, that we should pray for those people who are working against us. That's a very Catholic thing to do. But that's not sufficient, okay? You need something else. You need to fight back. I've often used the example of our Jewish brothers and sisters who don't take it as much as we take it, which is precisely why they don't have as much thrown at them. You need that kind of fighting spirit which Mother Angelica had. And where are all these people on the left, within the Catholic Church and also outside the Catholic Church? Why don't they hail her as a great woman? She stood up against a lot of bishops, for that matter. She was a great role model for women, that she was going to go out there. She wasn't a feminist in the sense of pro-choice, obviously. She was against abortion. But she was a role model for a woman. I don't care what ideological stripe you come from. She doesn't get enough credit for that. And it took Commonweal magazine, a media outlet on the left, 3 days before they even recognized her achievements, which they ran, actually, a review of your book a long time ago. That tells me a lot, too. She took on the left. She took on the right if necessary. She took them all on, and she won. Yeah,
well, Bill, you had a kindred spirit there. I remember traveling with Mother in the late 1990s, and you were on CNN or something. It might have been in an airport. And she was watching you, and she said, "This Donahue, is he married? We need bishops like this." So you had a fan in Mother, Bill.
Well, she was my catalyst. She was my inspiration. And not only was she a holy woman, but boy, she could take people to the mat, and rightfully so. And then when some people on our side didn't like her, they tried to discipline her. What a bunch of phonies.
Bill Donahue, thanks for your insight. As always, we'll check in with you later. Despite Mother's activism throughout the 1990s, she still knew how to have a good time. Watch this.
What do you think? God's a yo-yo? You know, he's got a, this century we do this, that century we don't. Hey, what's the matter with you, huh? Raymond's with me, and it's his birthday. You know, how old are you?
I'm not telling you how old I am.
Well, do you want me to tell you how old you look?
Oh. You really want to know? Well, guess.
If it's honest.
Well, I'll tell you the truth if you can guess it.
What good could you be?
Is it that
I
difficult?
could say you're 30, but no, you can't be 30.
Why
40?
not? 40? 40?
What's wrong with 40?
You got habits older than me. What do you mean? 40?
I was 40 once.
Yeah, but I'm not even close to 40, though.
Well, how would I know? You don't tell me, so I'm guessing.
My goodness.
All right, if you're not 40 and you're not 30, you got to be between.
31.
Oh, really?
31.
That's all you are.
Yeah. And I'm aging by the minute.
I'll never forget. I've said it, and most of you haven't heard it. This woman calls me up and she said, "Oh, my husband's living with another woman." I said, "In my house." What? Well, kick him out. How are you going to say that nice? You could say, well, how unfortunate, you know. Why don't you just open the door and tell him to leave? You can't say it nice. It's not a nice thing. So after I said that gave her that little advice, she said, "Oh, I can't." What do you mean you can't? They have no place to go. Well, hell is where they're aiming for. Tell them to go there. Why don't you air these people? And I said, no, I won't, because I don't think they're Catholic. He says, by what right do you have to say that? I said, I own the network. And he said, well, you won't always be there. And I said, I'll blow the damn thing up before you get your hands on it.
So they caught you on a good day.
Yeah, on a good day.
I could watch those all night. A 1996 trip to Bogota, Colombia, proved decisive for Mother. There she encountered a statue of the divine child Jesus, the Divino Niño. She believed the child Jesus called her to build a temple in his honor, and he would, quote, help those who help you. Mother the builder had a new project.
I just want that chapel to overwhelm everybody so that they get the reality of God's presence, God's house. This is where he dwells.